Hi everyone. Welcome to this episode, this podcast. Today we're welcoming with us Mr. Omar Moujaes. Hi.
Hi.
How has your day been?
Well, it's been hectic. Yeah, getting here was hectic.
And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Insta. To everyone that is on the Byblos Campus and would like to join us in person, please do. The studio is in Science 102, so please come ask your questions in real time about the topics that we mentioned in the mail. So let's get right into it.
Yes, excellent.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. This
How's
first
your
time
day
being here.
been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. Just finished class.
How are you feeling? How's everything?
Well, it's been a صراحة tough semester coming back. It was
Eh,
a tough semester overall, you know.
that's fair. How's coming back? How are you taking that in?
Well, it was for me. I've been trying to since November to bring students back to campus. I've been trying to do that. I think now officially being back. The other day, I had kind of this full class for the
Yeah.
first time in a while, and I got nervous. Like I came up, and even one of my students there, قالت لي, why you look nervous? Like, why are you nervous? قلت لها, I do look nervous, right? And I'm like, can I get an applause? Because usually we applaud for, the course that I teach is public speaking. And so we applaud for the speakers. So that was one of those times when they caught me on being nervous. And I don't know why. It felt like that first day of going back on campus. Usually every semester I have these same feelings every time I come back. I get anxious from, it's like...
You get anxious?
Yeah.
You professors get nervous too on the
I mean,
first day?
I do. I don't know if other people, but I imagine my colleagues do. Yes, I imagine they do. Because you're away from it for a while, and then it takes you time to warm up.
I mean, I know we as students get nervous. I mean, it's new courses, new environments, maybe for the first
I
years.
feel like you're more bored, like when you enter classes. Like that's what I mean. Like I feel students just come in and check in when they.
Yeah.
First day. Or do you have nervousness?
For me personally, I do. I do have nervousness. It feels like meeting a whole entire new universe of people that I'm gonna be stuck with for the next 4 or 5 months, and I want to make a good impression, because like I assume you want to have, like, you want your student to get a good idea of.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing. I want my professors to think like, oh, okay, yeah, she's not a bad student. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I know. From my end, definitely it has something to do with that. When I first come in the first couple of days, it's, I don't know these students. I don't know where they come from. I don't know how I sound off to them. And it takes a bit of time for me to warm up. And I think that's mostly the nervousness in it as a teacher. I think it's not like I am actively or consciously wanting to be validated by them, although maybe I am in some way. I guess that's what the nervousness is
probably
in some way.
getting some kind of validation.
Yeah. And I felt this was a week ago when we returned. I felt that it was the first time I see this energy again, this full 25 people class, and it felt like this is something that we've been missing for so long. It felt like I was warming up as a new teacher من الأول.
Okay. And so that nervousness, how did you navigate it? How did you decide that, okay, so, because, okay, first day, that was a while ago. But like now that it's first day all over again, because I feel like a lot of students, even being back on campus, especially for Beirut students, being back on campus means going back into that uni life or that lifestyle, right? So that and the nervousness associated with the first day, it's like being on campus for the first time all over again. It's like a first day all over again. So how did you navigate that nervousness as a professor?
Well, speaking on the Beirut, Beirut has been an issue. I don't teach in Beirut. I teach in Byblos. So I understand that for a lot of the students here that are watching maybe from Beirut, they have not, this was the first week or something like that. Personally, how I've managed to deal with nervousness, I think it's from multiple fronts. I do teach it from a public speaking point of view, how to handle nervousness, how to do that. From a teacher, I can tell you, it never really changes. You're always gonna be nervous.
It doesn't?
It becomes less influential on you as a person. You know, like you get nervous in the beginning, you get that adrenaline rush in a sense, and then you have the techniques that you've practiced, over the years as a teacher or as a public speaker to kind of tone those down, to talk to yourself. There's a lot of talking to yourself. So there's a lot of like, you can do this, you're the best, imagine them in their underwear kind of thing.
Even that, as you, as an instructor, that's surprising.
I guess when you're more a teacher, you realize that that's a normal thing that teachers are gonna face, especially because you don't know the dynamic of the class. You don't know how many students are really into your subject, and some of them that are just, they need to make this mark and go away. So you don't know the dynamic, and I think that's where most of it comes from. And I think for me personally, the way I deal with this is I talk to myself a lot. I remember that I've taught all these courses ahead of time. Like I know I've done this before. I know I can do it. So it's just the first in a sense. It's the adrenaline kick that happens in a sense.
Adrenaline.
Yeah.
You spoke about adrenaline.
Yeah.
Okay, so why adrenaline? Can you elaborate a bit more on that?
Well, no, it's the same place as in public speaking in a sense. Adrenaline comes from your natural want to, fight, flight, and I personally add a freeze to it because I have a lot of, I experience a lot of students that freeze when they publicly speak. They see black in front of them. They stop being able to verse their thoughts. They become anxious and they freeze in a sense. Or they walk out of the room, and all three of these happened, or they attack. So the adrenaline is kind of in that area. And we all go through it. And it comes from, of course, self-validation. You want to be validated. You want to do a good presentation. You want to present. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're nervous right now. Like, I'm nervous right now, like doing this.
We both are. Yeah.
And it's because we want to do a good job. We want to make it work. We want to sound off as being professional. And so as a teacher, you have all these dilemmas as well. For me, they used to be worse. They used to be worse when I was a lot younger because I have like a baby face, so, as you see. So, I get asked for my ID
at the door
sometimes. Yeah, in Beirut especially because I don't go on that campus a lot. So whenever I do go on the Beirut campus, I'm always asked at the lower gate, even though I see the same security guard for the last 10 years, like even when I was a student, like I was a student here since 2010. So he's seen me since 2010. He's seen me for 15 years. And he still kind of asks me, can I have your ID? And I tell him, you've seen me. You've seen me so many times. You've seen me so many times. I'm a teacher now. So when I was younger, I faced this much more. Now I feel like it's smoother, this anxiety thing that we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, so you said you've been teaching for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that was a while ago. You started a while ago.
2015. Yeah.
How old were you when you started?
You're asking someone there? I was 24. I was 24, 25 when I started. So I was a young teacher. I started here in LU. I started in Bruwana High School. I was teaching film, theater, TV. So when I started in LU, some of my students were just 3 years, like 4 years younger than me. You know, I had a student actually that was my age, that was 25, 26, and that was hard to deal with. You know, because you have a lot of ego there that's going, the students like, who is this professor that's this young, like, you have this dynamic. When I started here, I started with Sammy, who's doing our switching here in the studio. We would work here in the studio with the other film students, with the TV students, with the theater students. It was a full program altogether, performing arts students. And that was the time I think I struggled the most in terms of trying to show my confidence as a teacher, because I wasn't that confident in terms of experience. Like I was limited in how much experience I did. I loved my field. I loved talking about it. So I was good in, sharing the information I wanted. I had just completed my master's, so I had a lot of image persona to like to put up for the students, you know, like I have to be this mature persona teacher almost. And this was hard. It was hard to maintain this persona.
But the persona you're talking about here, how did you navigate through that? Because the persona is like a front you put to your students. Like you want to seem more mature, you want to seem more that you're the older, wiser self or professor. Like you have this information baggage that you have that they don't, and so that's the front you're putting to them. And so how did that affect you as a person behind the scene, if you will?
Well, I wasn't trying to deceive them. That's what you're going at. You know, I'm not putting up this
front,
front that's not
your true self.
dissimilar or far away from me. You know, it's a part of me that I fully understand in terms of persona, and like that persona, the teacher persona, if we're talking about it. But it's not something that I maintain outside of the teaching setting. But this doesn't mean that my other personas that have to do with what I'm dealing with my sister or dealing with my friends or dealing with my family. These aren't so divergent from the
your actual,
you know, the teacher one or one another. Yeah, they all share some similarity with one another. It's just as a teacher, you know, I treat myself more seriously in certain things. I still try to joke around the way I joke around. I also speak differently. And with my friends, you know, I'm obviously more vulgar. Like, you know, we're all vulgar when we speak to our friends. With my parents, I'm not. For example, I try to keep my language limited. And so I think
just adapting, basically.
Yeah, I feel it's more adaptation. And I feel that each one of these personas that I have all form my character. So I think that, I guess we gotta first maybe talk a bit about the definition of persona. And it's these traits and qualities that you have, maybe behaviors or attitudes that you hold, that you choose to portray different personas depending on the person that you're with. And so we all do this. Yeah, like we're with our parents, we're someone, with our siblings, we're someone, with our friends, we're someone. And that does not necessarily mean that they need to be dishonest or
deceiving.
Yeah, deceiving in their nature. So how did I manage to do this with them? I think in some way I needed to contrive some confidence, even though maybe I kind of had it. I used to direct plays with actors, so it's not, you know, I never taught in my life. I was in the directorial field, in a sense. I was directing talent, and I had to study a lot the night before. You know, I had to know my stuff the night before. Nowadays, I've taught it for so long. I know my stuff like it's the, you know, back of my hand. But at the time, it was like the first time for me to sit and teach at the university level. I didn't know the level, you know, that I'm supposed to teach. Do I like go overboard? Do I take it easy? It was a bit of a challenge to strike that balance. And as like time went by, I gained more confidence as a teacher. I realized that, you know, okay, students like my method of teaching. They like my classes. You know, I gained confidence that way through the result, like through seeing trial and error of what works, what doesn't work in class. But I was a rookie. Yeah, definitely a rookie in the beginning, and I made rookie mistakes, and probably now looking back at it, maybe I should have taken more time, you know, instead of going into teaching directly, like gain that confidence more. But I guess, you know, that's where we ended up.
that's not a bad place to end up, I think. Your
classes, here with you.
Like that, and your class capacity is like full within the seconds.
For sure was, I swear.
And okay, so speaking about those personas, like going off of that arrow or like that direction, how do you think people that put up fronts, not deceiving fronts, just have like fronts, these exactly like so many different personas, how do they deal with that? And like, which persona is their actual self? Which persona is how do you deal with that, you know?
Well, the more you variate this, the more this becomes like, okay, the person you have with your mom and dad is completely different than the person you are with your friends. This is especially true with our society. You know, our society has these cultural norms and cultural restrictions in some areas, sometimes religious restrictions, sometimes traditional. And it's hard to navigate these parameters, because these parameters, in a sense, like start when you were a child.
Yeah.
You know, as you're a child, you're taught, no, mama, mata matruhita, you know, like the don't touch kaka, like that's it, you know, you know, that's the most basic thing that you can say. And the way parents do this is that they relate it to something disgusting. You know, like haida kaka, you know, that's the common thing they do. They chastise you in the case if it's really serious. If you're touching fire, you know, you're gonna get a slap on your hand or something like that. So it starts off from there. Yalla, we get raised on the notion of that, you know, you can't go walking naked in the street.
Yeah.
You gotta say please and thank you. You gotta cultural norms and societal norms so that society can function in a sense. And this leads to some ideas seeping into the narrative that are not necessarily supposed to be culturally like normal. And if you look at the Western societies, you see them as being normal things, like normal values. Only they're taboo. So some of these things sneak in there when they are not necessarily like stuff like murder, you know, don't do murder, you know, don't do rape. Those are things that every culture, every society will agree on their moral principles. They'll agree on their values, that these are non-negotiables. These are things that we're not going to negotiate. Whereas in our culture or in certain countries, and different countries have different influences, definitely, you see these ideas seep in when they are ideas that are toxic or destructive to the individual's identity. And they closet the individual, they restrict the individual in some way, they limit their freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And in that effort, you craft your identity based on these cultural places. So I think we can agree, identity is crafted through the interaction of other people. I don't think you can sit in a room and craft your identity. You know, I think it is through the eyes of the beholder. It's through looking, you know, in the mirror. You know, when someone sees you, when we say that someone sees you, we mean that that you see yourself through them. You know, like as well. That there's an image, that there's
that vision they have of you.
Yeah. And so in terms of constructing this identity as we are growing up, we rely on other people, on other sources to bring it to the forefront. And we realize, matalan, okay, mom and dad are not accepting of this idea, although my friends are, my best friend is. And you start opening up to your best friend more and not opening up to your mom. You know your mom's gonna scream, you know your dad's gonna, you know, throw it off the wrong way. They're going to maybe related to their generation and not to you. Like there's a whole generation gap as well. And so we rely on these people to build our identity, and in that process we forget which one we actually agree with, which one we want, which one is the society's version of who we're supposed to be. And in that effort we tend to stop self-reflecting. Because we say this is wrong, I shouldn't self-reflect. Like this is the devil, I shouldn't think about it. You know, like there's a cultural stopping mechanism that prevents the self-reflection. And in that process, you create a كبت, مسميها كبت يعني بالعربي. You create a constriction of a hidden identity that eventually it will surface in either you projecting to other people, hurting other people, judging people harsher or at the same level than you would judge yourself. It would start to come out in this version. And these constriction of identities creates, in a sense, a shadow.
The
identity.
Shadow self. That's what you call the shadow self.
The shadow self, yes.
And so a practical example of it, I think, would be in acting, right? It's you adopt this whole
you adopt different identities.
Character's identity.
Yeah, definitely.
And how does that affect the like so the actor is someone or is a certain person in their day-to-day life, and then they have to like adopt a character or like portray a character on camera,
Yeah.
and so that on and off um uh switch that happens, like Heath Ledger for example,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
couldn't separate those identities
Yeah. Yeah.
when
In a sense,
he played the
yes.
Joker.
Yes.
And so why is that? Why do you think that happened with him?
Well, I think first you touched upon a lot of points. What about them? So I guess let's deconstruct it,
Mhm.
one piece at a time. I think, well, let's use Heath Ledger. I
Mm.
think that's a easy
Example.
example to go into. I think Heath Ledger, well, Heath Ledger was using one of the methods in acting. So let's first talk about acting as a whole. I think for the layman, acting is we go on camera, we pretend to cry, we pretend to laugh, and the camera cuts and it's over.
Mm.
But I think one of the things that's missed for people who aren't part of the acting experience is the types of theories that go into acting. So for theatrians or for people who are in the theatrical or performing arts careers, we all have an idea that theater theory is vast and expansive. It can involve certain techniques that are at antithesis to one another, like they oppose one another in
Mhm.
technique. It's similar to psychology, how there's different techniques in psychology.
Yeah.
Is similar in, you look at drama therapy, music therapy, they all have different approaches. Even therapy itself has different approaches in how you can go about it, for example. It's the same with drama. It's the same with acting. So acting, if we're going to look at it more in a historical perspective, it was constructed from all over the world. We had Greek theater that introduced the masks and
Mhm.
the very exaggerated speaking.
Mhm.
Roman theater adopted a lot of those techniques and expanded on them. We have medieval and Christian theater that came in and provided, the mansion inside the church, the facade, and
Mhm.
the whole crucifixion and resurrection story. And that moved on to the streets. It became a moving theater. Then we had the influence of Italian theater as well come in. So all these influences brought in some influences in acting. So the most kind of recent one, at least in this sequence, is the Shakespearean theater. And you know how Shakespearean theater is.
Yeah.
It's extremely dramatized when it comes to portraying natural elements. It starts to rain when Lady Macbeth is about to commit murder. It has these mise en scène,
That exaggerated.
exaggerated. Whereas the modern form of acting is now a more of a built up of all these previous methods. They do still exist, all of them, and they are practiced around the world in different ideas. The one that Heath Ledger used is called method acting, and it is a type of acting that was constructed, or at least called out by Konstantin Stanislavski.
Mhm.
And Konstantin was a person of a theatrical background. He was a writer, he was a director in terms of dealing with this method
Mhm.
himself. And what this method is that if you want to portray something on a TV, film, whatever it is, stage, whatever it is, the emotion must be truthful to its original fidelity. That means it must be accurate. It must be accurate to the way someone. If you're gonna cry that you lost your daughter, you have to feel it. You have
Mhm.
to feel it to its full extent. Not in a I'm gonna pretend for 10 minutes. No, it's going to be. You're gonna think about this evening. You're gonna think about it for a week. You're gonna think about it for a month. So the Stanislavski technique, the method acting technique, is a full psychological exploration of different identities, if you want to think
Mhm.
of it this way. And these identities aren't meant to be treated as disingenuous or in a dishonest manner. Heath Ledger took the Stanislavski method to its extreme, whereby we do have more modern methods right now that do not demand the Stanislavski experience. Like we do have certain methods now that get you to reach a certain place and not necessarily go all the way out.
Mhm.
But why are we talking about Heath Ledger? There's a reason
What are
why
we
he's
talking
that
about here?
famous. There's a reason why his performance is regarded as one of the best performances on cinema, on camera. It's because he got there. he got there and he portrayed a character that was so difficult to portray. And I don't think before and after him, anyone has been able to successfully
Play the
do
Joker.
this. And I think after him, everyone is a copycat. Everyone is a copycat. I guess I could say this, but I do think that Heath Ledger used such a level of performance that is beyond a lot of actors. It's also a type of performance that a lot of people from the theater and filmmaking and television industries don't approve of. I'm one of them as well in terms of taking it to that extreme. I don't want you to lose your life over make pretend at the end of the day, pretending to be a character. I don't want you to lose your life over that, no matter the authenticity of it. But again, for him, that's why we're talking about him. The reason why it solidified him as, one of the most talented in this experience is because he really went all the way in it. Leonardo DiCaprio does the same thing in The Revenant. A lot of these actors, starve themselves. Christian Bale, he drops weight. You look at Christian Bale, he has a body every single year that looks completely different than the other year. Sometimes he's like a skinny person. Sometimes he's a full-on muscular. And it is to give credibility to that character. So Stanislavski designed this to function on memories or dreams. He defined the course that you're either going to try to remember this incident, so it must have happened to you,
so
or you're going
to traumatic.
Imagine it fully. As in, you imagine yourself, you're the murderer. You imagine yourself, in the case of the Joker, this psychotic, extremely narcissistic, extremely demonic character. How do you become this character? How do you take the time to dress and wear this character? You gotta imagine what their life is like. I mean, I don't imagine Heath Ledger was like this in real life. He's known as being a sweetheart. He had to wear something he would never have had to. He had to explore sides of himself that were stopped at childhood. That so were told that child no haida kakka. He had to now engage in this idea
and go into that identity he shoved in the shadows.
Yeah, so he needs to. I know some of these actors, they don't shower for a week, they eat bugs, or they dress they wear the character as much as they can in their habits, in their eating, in their sleeping, and their how they talk and speak to friends. They embody it for the entire shooting process. In terms of theater actors, if we have a 6 to 7, 8 month rehearsal, you're sitting with this character for 8 months. But okay, you're not talking to your mom in character like that. Whenever you're in the rehearsal process, you're engaging in the setting every single time. And so Heath Ledger took it to a place whereby he let the shadowness of this new identity take over. As in, there was no longer a connection to his original identities. And this is kind of what we started off
on
with,
that wavelength.
These things cannot vary too much. If they vary, الحبل كذب قصير. It will catch up to you. It will. You at one point you will mess up the narrative. You will confuse the lives at some point. Pathological lying can only get you so far. And so, in his case, because he was so truthful to this character, it led him down
to his demise.
To his demise. And I think the area had he done more shadow work, maybe, on how to limit this shadow from being all encompassing, then he might have had control over it. But again, it's very hard. It's nice to pontificate it, but it's hard when it's actually in practice. And so from this, he suffered a lot. And that's why a lot of actors don't go into this method. We have other methods like biomechanics, Taba Meyerhold, we have Grotowski, we have Artaud. Some of these will be less or more intense. In the case of Artaud, Matalan, it is a bit more intense. It is more truthful. But so each of these methods will choose. You, as a director, you'll choose which one you want, and as an actor too. In modern day cinema, it's generally all founded on Stanislavski and that method. And so I think we were in the shadow character and
Right,
talking about
right.
the shadow character. I feel like this is something within all of us,
Yeah,
and it's something we have to actively fight
exactly.
on a daily basis. I know personally, I've suffered with the shadow character more than once.
Yeah.
I've seen other people suffer through it as well.
Hmm. And so you were saying that shadow self comes from restrictions or being like put in a certain constraint atmosphere. Like you can do that, you can do that, you can do that. Okay, but shove all of these desires, quote unquote, into that box, into that the shadows that I'm gonna deal with with it
Yeah,
later.
yeah, I'm gonna deal with it later. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what it is.
And
Yeah.
so, how did you navigate that? How did you explore that box?
Well, I didn't know about it for a long time. Although I taught acting and I taught public speaking, I had not confronted my shadow until 4 years ago.
Mhm.
So, I'm taking through my 20s, I had not confronted this thing. So, personally, where I'm from, I grew up in Turshwer. It's a very small, Christian town up in the Metin. I was raised Catholic Orthodox. So my dad's Orthodox, my mom's Catholic. But I was raised in that
Mhm.
environment. My dad's more of an atheist, so am I. But I was raised as a church
Mhm.
boy my whole life. I served in church. I did all that stuff for almost 12 years, and I served in both churches. Like I served in the Orthodox and the
Mhm.
Catholic, and etc. Um, and so through that upbringing, we were talking about the values that you remember that you're instilled in your
Yeah,
youth. Like so,
in a
for
setting.
me, like my family values and my uh, Christian upbringing at the time taught me to, you gotta give to the poor. You
Mhm.
gotta self-sacrifice yourself, just like Jesus did. You gotta live up to these characters in the religion. You gotta live up to their omnipotence or to their goodness in a sense. Maybe not omnipotence, but goodness
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, that you need to strive for the good that is found in that faith. And so there came a time where I was doing this a lot. I was doing it with my friends and I was doing it with my family. Like I would compromise myself.
Yeah.
If I didn't want to do this, I'd still say like I need to do it for the benefit of the group,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
a lot of self-giving and a lot of putting yourself out there and giving, never receiving, that exhausts you at the
But I
end.
feel like this is why I wanted to go into this point because
Mhm.
giving can be a non-sin type of outlook. It's not a bad thing to give.
No.
And so I feel like when we speak about the shadow character, people will misconstrue this. Okay, don't go drinking or go. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things that could be actually good within their nature, and they are disguised as being good within their nature. But in effect, in actuality they are
Mm.
bad for you, not necessarily bad for everyone else. It might be great for everyone else, it's just bad for you. And so for me it was in terms of sacrificing with my friends. Like I would overgive and overcommit and divulge
Mhm.
information, for example,
I do
overshare.
that too. I do that a
There you
lot.
go. Because you feel like you need to be validated, and if you share more,
You invite them to
yeah,
share
you
too.
invite them to share.
That gives them the safe environment to like, I am sharing, you can share
Yeah, you can
too.
share too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that in your own mind, it feels like, okay, if I do positivity, positivity will come back to me. It's a very typical Christian upbringing, honestly. And you realize that not all people are like that in their
Yeah.
values. Not everyone was raised by my parents and what they taught me. Likewise, me and them, vice versa.
Hmm.
Um, and so there's a false sense of, I'm not gonna say hope, but a false sense of giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That I used to say that, okay, everyone is good.
Yeah. But
Everyone will be good. They might have a little devil in them, but everyone is good. Everyone
that's
is,
deceiving. That
yeah,
idea
yeah,
in
yeah,
itself is deceiving.
yeah, exactly. توصلي لمطرح إنه you get abused in this structure because
Hmm.
you have people out there, bad actors out there that feed off of these types of,
Energy vampires.
yeah, exactly, slugs or something like
Yeah.
that, that feed off this energy, that wait for this person to show up in their life, to give them attention, to give them a sense of belonging. So Anna, for me, I got involved with a lot of people like that. Um, or maybe not a lot, that way the people, maybe they're watching. Everyone in my life is like, are you calling us this? But some people in my life, they were more interested in gaining from me than giving me. They're more interested in getting emotional affection from
that
me.
short-term entertainment.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. That entertainment, that validation, that, all of that stuff. And so over in my 20s, I fell in love with people who were narcissists by accident. So, and you can imagine, if you have someone that's over-giving, oversharing, over-loving, over all of that, and you pair them up with a narcissist, you have, the perfect storm in a sense.
Yeah.
وما كنت أفهم ليه. ما كنت أفهم why I'm not receiving the love. ما كنت I would keep thinking like I was wrong.
Yeah.
There must be something broken within me. There must be something that I'm not doing.
I might have upset them in a way.
Yeah, I might have upset them. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said this instead.
So a lot of overthinking too.
Yeah, but this is the type of overthinking that leads you down to self-deprecation and self-loathing. That it's the type of critique on yourself that's not constructive.
And never being enough.
I think that's the feeling of never being enough. I lived with almost my entire teenage years until my 20s, until I hit 30. And I don't know if I do remember the moment that I went like, aha, I need to love myself more.
That's it?
That's it. Like, I need to treat myself with respect. Like your parents, shove this lesson down your throat. Like, like respect yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you have a lot of parents that drill this lesson in, and my parents used to drill it too, but it was lost along the way due to the other lesson, overgive and overlove and overshare. So there's a contradiction.
Plus, it doesn't really come, or like you don't really realize that it's there until there's that.
Yeah. And
that's it.
And the aha came from my partner. It came from someone I was seeing, and they just called it out to me, and they're like, "You don't love yourself."
I know.
I'm like, I've done plays about this. I did the Dante's Inferno and Purgatorio, which had all to do with self-love, self-acceptance, the theme was that half my plays and my films have to do with self-love and self-acceptance.
But you don't love yourself.
And how did I miss that mark? How did I skip that beat? And took me till 30. That means I burned through the 20s. I burned through
the best years of your life.
Yeah, it's not true. It's actually 30. And the reason why I say this is because you finally see yourself when you reach that area. And once you see yourself, you're able to move past that. I suffered a neck injury when I became 30. And so I had to be on the floor, basically, wearing like a neck brace, like a plastic neck brace. My friends used to call it the leash, because if I wanted to go out to a club, I couldn't go out without it. And if you're sitting at home for a while, you're gonna want to go clubbing, like, even with this thing, like you're not gonna care. So I'd wear like a turtleneck, hoodie
to
or
go
something,
over
to
it,
just like try to style it with a scarf or something like that. But it taught me a lot. It taught me that I wasn't invincible, that my body is fragile. Because I taught biomechanics a lot, so I would always treat my body as this invincible instrument that you can treat the body like a machine. And when this was abused, or when this was taken advantage of, not necessarily just from the relationships I was in, but from overworking and overachieving. Because when you don't have an avenue to let out all this energy, you're not seeking meaningful relationship experiences that are varied and exotic and out there and all of this, you have to put this energy somewhere else. Most likely you'll put it at work.
Your work.
And so that's why I started as a young teacher. I was very driven, self-driven, self-made, self-motivated. And so
I want to do everything all the
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. And I'm here to win it and kill it to win it. And so I was forgetting my body completely. I was forgetting, I was smoking a lot. I was, in health-wise, I wasn't gymming. I wasn't taking care of my body. Although I was teaching physical theater, but I wasn't taking care of
Mm.
it. I would abuse it in the rehearsal process. Um, I'd take on any work that anyone would give me. I'd say yes to anyone just to keep myself busy.
Mhm.
Whereas now you're most likely gonna get a no. That gets quite rare. I don't know how I gave you a yes to this.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
There's so much work to do. But you learn how to say yes and no
Mhm.
because you know the consequences of the yes. You know the consequences of what it is to sacrifice a version of yourself. And you don't know this at 17. At 17, 18, you want to be a people pleaser, right?
Yeah.
You want to please everyone.
You want everyone to love you. You
Yeah,
want.
yeah. You want to make the most amount of friends possible. The more friends on the hands, the better.
That was me.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Imagine
was
that.
me.
Yeah. You feel like you've changed from this?
Yeah. Ooh, my first
Yeah.
year, me in university, it was something. I would walk around campus, say hi to like 10 people between classes,
Yeah, yeah.
and I can't remember have their names. Guys, I love you. I swear, I love you all. But I
Can't
used to.
remember you though.
No, I do. My close friends, I do like the people I interacted with the most, and that I felt
Yeah, the
aligned with.
meaningful ones.
Mhm,
Yeah, yeah.
aligned with the way I see things and like my values and so on. So like the friends I made along the way, those are still there. Those
Yeah,
are still,
yeah.
and I'm very grateful for them. But those like collecting friends like Pokemon cards, friends and stuff to do. This is
Yeah,
an example,
yeah.
so collecting friends like Pokemon cards, that exhausted me
Yeah.
because I had to like be
You split
always.
yourself thin. Yeah, you have to be there for this person. You have to be there for that. They broke up with that person. You have to sit and
Exactly.
cry with them on the phone for an hour. Like, yeah, you
Exactly.
have
And
to
so
give yourself that.
you had to be out there with everyone, and it was exhausting, and it made me put a lot of other people first, and not neglect myself in a way.
Yeah.
Neglect my happiness and what I wanted to what I was looking for in those relationships, those friendships, those anything really. And so when I realized that won't do,
Yeah.
that won't work,
Yeah.
I just started investing more time into the people I felt I had meaningful
Yeah,
connection with.
you change your direction altogether. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And then even my friends now, they say that oh, you're not the same person that I met the first semester or first year at LAU. Yeah, I've grown. I've understood who to give my time to, who to share with. Like you were on the oversharing note, and
Yeah, yeah.
that taught me a lot. Yes, even in my relationships, like that, I used to be just like you,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I just wanted to have someone, but then now I feel like I have a different set of values, and even things I look for in a partner, those are
They
completely
changed.
different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I think that's the same with me. Like I changed completely what I look for in a partner. And when we were talking about the aha
Hmm.
moment, um, I think from there it took me like I had an aha moment, but then it took me a couple of months to think about it. Like I started thinking about okay, when I was 15,
Self-reflection.
yeah, when I was 18, this happened, and this was like a decision that I made after this, and this decision led to that a lot. So I know sometimes it's wasteful
Hmm.
to track back the cause and effects of your decision, but then you can take people to court. You
Exactly.
can put up an okay, this is what this person has influenced on me. I can choose consciously to keep this a part of me, or I can choose consciously to call it out and stop it.
Hmm.
تحط لها حدوده. The shadow character works like this. It's not about dealing with the shadow in terms of waging war on it. Don't wage war on your shadow. You're meant to explore the shadow from a integration perspective. So the shadow, I'm using a term that was coined by Carl Jung, and we were in Stanislavski, and so
Hmm.
all of these different areas of study will speak about the shadow. It's just Carl Jung has managed to term it in its form. And so there are two types in it. There's the personal one that we've been discussing at length, in a sense, and then there's the cultural and larger one that I think we briefly touched
went
upon,
over it, yeah.
in the beginning. And so in the personal one, I have a friend, for example, her whole life, she was wearing this kind of, I'm the good girl, I don't sleep around, I don't do this, I don't, I date people in a very respectable manner and all of this. And a very close friend of mine for more than 2 decades. And when we graduated school together, so we were in school together. And in school, we were the introverts. So we were the people that were in the corner, or like, we weren't very like popular. We weren't any of that. We had like a small group of friends together. And so our relationship, like conversations, were not deep back then in terms of like, who are you dating? Who are you seeing? Like we would not have any meaningful interactions with lovers. And so years later, and our paths kind of diverged. She left the country, and so that's why we couldn't see each other a lot. So we were jumping around the different countries, me and her. And so I meet up with her a couple of years back, and she tells me, "Oh, look, like I'm in a relationship with these 2 other people." She was like in a trio
a triangle.
a triangle kind of relationship, a triple, a throuple,
throuple
kind of relationship. But after seeing her in it, and she would discuss this too. It's not like she wasn't aware of this, and she would discuss this to another friend of ours as well, that she was suffering as this third partner, that these other 2 are getting married, she's not, she's like kind of like a mistress, honestly, at some points. And she felt this, and she would verse this. But it's like, you look at what we described someone that would never do anything in school, would never date, even in university, like dated once or twice, super conservative, traditional type of dating, nothing too exotic or extreme, or stops at third base, or stuff like that, and then she went into the complete opposite direction,
like had a whole
100%. I know a lot of people like that. I was one of those people too. Having been closed off my entire life, I went crazy. I went the other way, really, really sharp. And I think this is where we're kind of getting to with the shadow, as in, this is not something that you could just tuck away in the closet and tell it, don't come out. There has to be a serious integration of it in your life. How? First, finding out what it is.
Yeah.
Finding out what is
I
your
was going to
shadow.
ask, how you do that? How do you not shove it
So
into
my
the
weakness
shadows?
was over-pleasing.
Yeah.
Over-loving, not loving myself enough, falling into narcissists. طيب, I know, if I start from there and say to myself, okay, backtrack, what caused this? My parents taught me that you need to be like this. Okay, am I going to be their prisoner for a lifetime? Am I going to be a prisoner of my parents' way of thinking, or my culture's way of thinking, my society's way of thinking? I can heal myself. I can stop these from repeating into, I can stop from projecting onto another person. I can stop this. And the way I could do this is, 1, be honest and
take accountability.
Truthful. And take accountability for how much you are at fault. So I don't mean to blame the victim here. I mean, how much am I at fault for looking for these people in my life? I'm a lot at fault. I was searching for them. Yeah, some of them stumbled in my life due to the nature of like where I am or whatever, but I looked for them. I pursued them in that sense. So there has to be some accountability on my end. And I don't mean take your parents to court. I don't mean like, okay, go, you treated me this way. No. The way out of this is absolution, forgiveness, acknowledgement, and integration. I think these are the steps that you would go about it.
Okay.
Integration, like, so we're talking about pretend, right? People like to act, like to pretend. Be drama therapy, be music therapy. There are these types of therapy that specifically tackle the shadow, that get you to come on stage You don't need to perform in front of the audience. They're more like improvisational work and actor work. Lucien Bourjaili does a lot of these, مثلا, in Beirut. He does a lot of improvisational actor work. Like I do have a couple of actors that do this as well. If I remember them, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Elias Zayek, he does this as well, like mindful acting. You know, mindful performance. So you could go join these types of places where you can go, you can scream, you can pretend to be the murderer. Let's be real. Whenever we're in traffic, whenever we're stuck in traffic, we cuss someone out. We wish death upon them. Whenever we fight with our parents in some places, we wish they weren't part of our lives. Like we wish they weren't so clingy in our lives. Oh, hey. So as people, we have negative emotions that will surface. Dealing with these in therapy, مش tucking them away, therapeutically exercising them, role playing, pretending to be that murderer for a day. Maybe if we pretend, it won't happen in real life. It's the same argument as video games that I've heard over the years. You know, people have over the years have pointed at video games as being toxic, destructive. It's not actually. The general consensus is it diffuses tension. It diffuses, you know, if you're gonna play as that sniper, Counter-Strike, whatever,
whatever
you know,
you're playing as.
you're doing it in a game. No one's dying there. No one's genociding another race there. And I think this is where the conflict of the shadow can cause cultural conflicts that we can't even know about. I think one of the best examples of this is Nazi Germany. If you asked anyone at the time that was a Nazi in Nazi Germany, they felt they were the right. It was culturally right, and it was part of the society right. So we can see from this that the shadow character, the destructive of even one spirit, it will create a society of shadow, a cultural shadow of society. ليك عنا هون بلبنان, we say in the Middle East إنه إفشو في كبت من Middle East. Why? That's a shadow thing. Let's be real. That's a shadow thing. That's something that we need to work on, that we need to tweak our values or oppose certain traditional norms or something like that, in a sense. In terms of مثلا students and stuff like that, I think a lot of the students can engage in acting. They can engage in shadow work when it has to do with music therapy, integrate it into their life. Go on Halloween, dress up dress up on Halloween, have fun. Go out and club for the weekend. Don't study for that test that weekend. Because right after, you're going to kill it in the library. You know? Diffuse tension.
On that note, do you have any like tips or practical stuff to help students study, me included, yani?
Yeah.
For finals? Because after the war, I think everyone is in a kind of helpful.
Hell of a state.
Yeah.
I couldn't even teach the class the other day.
Exactly, and so we're like feeling kind of helpless, and we don't have the that.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna I'll kill the final. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna ace all my exams. We just want to be done.
Yeah.
And I don't think that mindset is what is gonna help us kind of become better, or like take a breather after the war. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah.
And so, do you have any tips as to how to navigate that and navigate that finals period specifically?
Well, we just came out of the worst shadow experience we can. We were talking about the shadow culturally. Shadow. We just came out of a war whereby all we were talking about are death of other people. We were talking about this culture of death, in a sense, kind of culture of war. And so, first off, is to see. I know that a lot of people might have survivor's guilt at this moment. To counter blessings, I think we were talking about before. And when you break your body, you see. You see your real self finally. I think in this case we're talking about the same thing. For some people, they lost loved ones, they lost family, they lost their homes, for example. So I'm going to speak specifically to the others who haven't lost anything. Now is the time to count your straws, like to count your blessings, count everything that you have. Hold your siblings tight and hug them. Go and make amends, and go help other people that are in need. We have still centers that are helping people. We still have a lot of places that need volunteer work. So you want to get rid of this feeling, go volunteer an afternoon in this, and you're done. And you'll expulse this feeling. Seek help from the university sources that we have. We have so many sources here: counseling, advisors, other teachers. I know, like, colleagues of my colleagues and I have been, sitting with students. They need an hour to like talk about something they're going through. We have our office hours open all the time. We're doing WebEx as our office hours too, like on Saturdays, on Sundays. We're available all the time. Advisors are available all the time. The university resources are available all the time. So in terms of a student, you have all these sources around you. I think seeking therapy as well in terms of shadow work is key. If you feel like you're in the war affected you too much in terms of you got hit financially, etc., but you need to deal with this so that you have the proper mental state to get past it, to start building back up. You do need to seek like help from someone, specifically therapy. And there are different ways. Counseling, matalan, is a form of therapy. Of course. I think in this holiday, we should all focus on that. We should all focus on counting our blessings, on bringing back life into our lives, working on our demons so that we don't go to war. Again. I think if we work on our demons, I think it's very important to think of it from a individual rather than a society to individual, like individual to society. If we fix the pieces inside it, we don't contaminate them anymore. So if we're having this conversation now, right? So now you're going to come out, some people are going to come out with more of a reflection on their shadow self. They're going to reflect more. Next time when that shadow self kind of creeps in to eat you up or to destroy you, you can turn it off. You have that stopping cue. You can choose not to listen. You can walk away. You can go work out to release some steam. You can play some games. You can go out. Trust me, all of these will, as someone who worked really hard their entire life and now has more of a balance, I now make more than I made before. I have a better work relationship than I've ever had before. I have a better professional experience than I had before. I'm a better teacher. I'm a better person. So overall, all of this, in a sense, feeds into one another. I advise people in the holiday to do this, to really sit and do this work, and do it all the time, not just the holiday.
About the holiday in particular. And so, talking about a bit of final season, do you think it's like having taking time for yourself and putting a bit your study on hold and taking a breather, man, going out, taking a walk, and then going back to your studies, that can help?
Yeah. I mean, you wanna, when you're reading, when you're studying, when you're doing all of that stuff, you're sitting on a chair, backache, cramps, the whole deal. You're hungry. We're hungry now, by the way. I don't know if you heard our stomach noises. You're not concentrated because your mind is out. Deal with whatever you need to do. Clean your mind, diffuse it in a sense, and then you'll be able to. I mean, I took a gap year before I did my master's. When I took that gap year, I came back in full force. I think this is take the time to diffuse. What we went through was hard. What Lebanon went through was very hard. It's not to be taken on. Yalla, let's scrap our dust and call it Christmas. It's gonna require us to mend wounds and take our time with it and constantly diffuse it in a sense. Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you for watching, everyone, and please subscribe and follow us on Insta. And I hope you liked this episode. Thank you, Mr. Omar, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.